Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel again. It's Neyda, your favorite HR girly. I'm excited to have you here for another talk with me around HR and careers. Today I want to talk about a hot topic, and I think it's an important topic that a lot of us should discuss. I'm going to be talking about managing workplace conflict. Now, I'm going to be discussing managing workplace conflict on the employee side. I'm going to have a next video on how the manager, the employer can handle that, but today I'm going to talk to the employee. Now, we all know conflict is going to happen. We're together 8+ hours a day. You have a difference of opinion from mine. We view things differently. We see things differently. We experience things differently. So obviously there's going to be some sort of where we'll have to agree to disagree most of the times, right? It's unavoidable, especially even at work. But what matters is how we handle it. Now, let's get into some strategies to keep the peace at work and keep things moving smoothly. First things first, don't sweep conflict under the rug. Ignoring it isn't helping anyone, and trust me, it will come back bigger if you do. As a leader or a team member, it's your job to face it head on. Acknowledge there's an issue and start a conversation. So for example, you can say, hey, I noticed that there's some tension between us. Can we talk it out? It's uncomfortable. I know that it is. And trust me, I'm the type of person that I do not like conflict. I am more of, I'd rather avoid it. So that's why I'm nice to people. But things happen. And, in the office, I always consider it just kind of like when you're home away from home. You're together a lot of times, working on different projects, and difference of opinions can definitely cause different people to feel some certain type of way. If you get picked for a lead of a certain project over another person, someone's going to feel outed, and it can get very complicated. Sometimes work is like school, honestly, but conflict is going to happen. So you want to make sure that you can talk it out with them and keep it professional. You definitely don't want to come at them in a negative, in a rude way. And I know that there are some people that we cannot talk to. I get it. I've been there before. I have had conflicts in the workplace in the past, and it's gotten to a yelling match. Like, it's like you yell, I yell louder, and we've gone at it back and forth, which is unprofessional. But I know that tensions can get high, and I know that emotions and all of that can definitely be involved and will make people say things or act a certain type of way. Thankfully, it never escalated for me into like a physical manner, but sometimes it does happen in the workplace where people tend to get physical, and you don't want it to get to that point, because if it does get to that point, obviously police will have to get involved. You're going to lose your job. You'll catch some charges. Now you got to go to court, and there's extra court fees. That's going to be on your record, and it's going to be hard for you to obtain other jobs in the future. So you definitely want to think about that and the repercussions that it has. So don't put your hands on anybody. That's not what I'm recommending, but I'm just saying that I know that things happen. I get it. Like, we're all humans. We all are going to experience different emotions, but just make sure that you try to stay calm and also remain, because emotions will run high during conflicts, but you got to keep it cool. If you come in guns a-blazing, you're only going to escalate the situation. So you want to stay neutral, avoid taking sides, especially if you are mediating the conflict. Now, sometimes it could be where you are a colleague and then you experience kind of you're in between two other colleagues and they are going at it. So you're like, how do I handle this? What do I do? How do I respond to this? Do I get involved? Do I not? Do I get a manager involved or whatnot? So I know that that could be a very uncomfortable situation to be in, but you also want to just say, like, take a few deep breaths. Don't go into the conversation emotional, because once you are speaking out of emotion, you're not going to say the nicest things, and we don't want to do that. So how do you speak to your partners at home? How do you speak to your friends? How do you speak to your family members? Do you come at them in that sort of manner? Are you yelling at them? Are you aggressive? Are you the type that you like to sit down and discuss things? So kind of take your workplace similar to how you would handle it at home. Now, if you're aggressive at home and you're trying to bring that aggression to work, it's not going to work because people will call the police. People will definitely make you lose your job, and you do not want to experienced that all because you don't know how to control yourself. And as we are adults in this big age of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, we cannot be in the workplace acting a fool, y'all. So please, let's get it together. Let's learn how to talk to people, and let's make sure that we are being calm and friendly, professional and neutral. And I understand sometimes it's hard to speak to certain people just because they are very standoffish, but you want to try your best to not give them no ammunition, to not give them nothing where they could feel like you're coming at them in a bad way, where they feel like they got to have their guard up, they got to protect themselves. You got to just come to them in a very positive way, like, hey, and especially not in front of a group. Don't do it in front of a group, y'all, because that's one thing, is that when there's an audience and you are addressing a situation with someone, now they feel like they have to put on a show to defend themselves. They're not going to put their guards down, because now they feel like, if I don't defend myself in front of this group, if I don't say certain things, or if I don't respond in a certain way, they're going to look at me as a weak person. And I am not weak. I'm far from weak, which that's going to bring in that negativity. So you want to just ask that person, hey, can I come to your office? Can you come to my office? Can you meet me in a conference room? Can you, somewhere where it's just private, just between you and them, and then have that conversation. Hey, I noticed, I heard tension, or I heard something that you said that made me feel some type of way, or, whatever the situation is, make sure to address it and try to find the right words to say it. Don't come off too abrasive, because when you do, that's when people start to feel like, oh no, now I gotta check you. So that's where emotions can get high and the tension is higher, and it's just, it just get real messy. So just make sure to just respond in a very, very calm demeanor. Now, one of the biggest issues in workplace conflict, is that people aren't actually listening to each other. That's right. People are not listening to each other. They're too busy planning their next rebuttal. You need to actively listen, let the other person talk without interrupting, and then paraphrase what they've said to show that you understand. So, for example, you can use phrases like, I hear you saying XYZ, insert their point here, and I understand how that could be frustrating. This helps the other person feel heard, and that alone can diffuse the tension. And I know that sometimes it's hard to be the bigger person. Sometimes we don't want to be the bigger person. Sometimes it's like, no, but they disrespected me. No, but they came at me, and I'm not up for that. I gotta check them. I gotta address it. I totally understand that. But listen, if you just say your piece and you explain to them what offended you or what affected you or whatever it was, then that's at that point, just leave it alone. You've said your piece and keep it pushing, keep it moving. Now, with that person still, even after this conversation, especially as you've held it very professional, very calmly, and they still do not want to, they're still showing aggression and all that towards you, then that's when you probably are going to have to escalate the situation depending on what's going on. And when I mean escalate, I mean it like you got to get other people involved, like a manager, a team leader, etc. Okay. Now, you want to focus on solutions and not blame. The goal here isn't to point fingers or to play the blame game. That's counterproductive. Instead, focus on finding a solution that works for both parties. What can be done to make things better moving forward? You're looking for a win-win. Sometimes you have to learn to agree to disagree. You're not always going to agree with people in life. That's just part of life, y'all. I have been with my man for 16 years, and we still, to this day, we can always have difference of opinions. We'll see things differently, even though we're very similar in certain things and we're headstrong. But a lot of times we have difference of opinions, and it's like you got to come to a point where you got to compromise. You have to be able to just say, okay, you know what? Even though I don't agree, but you know what? Just to diffuse, I'm going to just shut it down. Okay, fine. Whatever, right? It doesn't mean that you lost, because I know that sometimes we feel like, oh, if I give in, that means that I've lost. That means that you've won and I've lost. No, it just means that sometimes you have to know when to pick and choose your battles. And some things, especially like in the workplace, some things are not even that serious. Some things you can totally work through. And then other times things may come where there could be a solution instead, where maybe you guys can be separated if you're working on a project together and it's just not working. You guys are bumping heads a lot. Maybe you can get pulled into a different project instead where you'll be more valuable or that person will be more valuable. So there are ways where you can find solutions around it. So it's not of a you've won, I've lost, or I won, you lost mentality. It's of like, okay, how can we make this work? Because at the end of the day, I still got to work with you. I still got to spend 8+ hours in a day with you. I still got to see you. I still got to talk to you. I still have to interact somehow, some way with you. How can we make this work? And I get it. Having conflict in the workplace is uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. I've been there before. I've had conflict in the workplace and it just feels very weird. It's awkward. You don't feel good because you're just kind of like, is that person, why are they looking at me? Or it's like, they're always judging you or talking about you or vice versa. And so you go through a lot, especially like in your mind, you start telling yourself a lot of things, or even like just people around you can sometimes hype it up and just make it worse. So try to keep the outside noise outside, not inside your brain. So it could be, remember, something as simple as improving communication or just setting better boundaries. Maybe it's something that the way that they communicate with you, you don't appreciate the way that they ask of certain things of you. Maybe they're telling you instead of asking you. And you could say something like, hey, you know what? I would really appreciate it if you have something for me to work on. I would totally appreciate if you could ask me first if I can handle that for you, or if I can take care of that for you, because I have other things going on and I want to make sure that if I am going to be helping you or whoever else, that I have the appropriate time, the bandwidth for them. But I don't appreciate you just talking to me and telling me that I need to do something, especially if they're not your manager. Now, if it's your manager, if it's your leader, that's totally different. Sometimes you just got to drop everything that you're doing and you got to let them just tell you what to do, right? But it's still on how they say certain things. So you can just say, hey, I appreciate it if you would ask me to take care of something for you instead of just telling me to do so. Because we're all adults. We're not children. We do not work with children unless you work at a daycare center, unless you work in an elementary school, a middle school. But other than that, most likely in your workplace, you're working with adults. And so you want to be treated as an adult, and you should be treating other people as adults. No one here is a child, and even children don't like to be spoken in a bad way. So think about that. Now, just always remember to keep it professional. We're all human, but at work, you got to keep it professional. And like I said, I've been through it before. I've been through my fair share of workplace drama, workplace conflict, where I will come home and I'll tell my man like, oh my God, you don't understand what so-and-so did today or what she said or what, like, I've been there. I've done that. I get it. I know how it is. But at the end of the day, I still have a job to take care of. I still have to go to work, put on my best face. What I always say to people is when you get to work, you got to do 1, 2, 3, action. Lights, camera on, action. You have to go to work and you have to act a certain way. You should not be going to work acting like your normal self at home, because there's always a time and a place for everything. I think when you're at home, it's okay to be your full revealing self and how you talk and how you act and how you treat people. But at work, I think you always have to keep it very professional. Like there should be a line, there should be a boundary. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know that, or they don't care, or they don't see the differences. But, one thing I always say is, we like it when we go to certain places and we're treated nicely, right? So if we go to the doctor's office and people treat us nicely, oh, we love that. But we don't like it if our appointment time was not taken seriously, or like if our 10 o'clock appointment was at 10 o'clock, but we weren't seen until 11. We don't like that. Now we feel disrespected. Now we feel like you're playing with my time. So we don't like to be disrespected. So it's the same thing as the golden rule that we've always heard of: treat people how you want to be treated. And get it, sometimes there are some people at work that are just so difficult to get along with. I've been there before, y'all. I know. But you got to be the better person sometimes. Sometimes you do have to be the bigger person. And I know sometimes being the bigger person sucks. I get it. All right. But try to avoid them. Try to avoid any personal attacks to them, any name calling, dragging old drama into the mix. Just stick to the facts, the situation at hand, and the impact on the work environment. If things are getting too personal or like they're getting way too aggressive, then you want to take a break and maybe revisit the conversation if when everyone has had a chance to cool off. Now, you also got to know when to get help. Sometimes a conflict can get too big for you to handle on your own, and that's okay. Know when to escalate it to HR or to your manager. If the conflict is affecting productivity or it's creating a toxic work environment, then it's time to bring in reinforcements. And it's not about tattling, it's about keeping the workplace healthy and functional. We have to get out of this mentality of it's snitching, it's tattling. I mean, we all deserve and we all should be working in healthy work environments. No one wants to work with someone who is negative, who is a downer, someone who isn't pulling their weight, who relies on the rest of the team to do things. We all deserve to go to work, clock in, perform our job, do our job as we're instructed and expected to, and then be able to go home. Boom, right? But I get it. You know, a lot of times there's sometimes secret animosity, competition, jealousy, and a lot of things also in the workplace, and favoritism, and just so much that happens. But you want to make sure, if it's up to you to be able to help to create a better work environment, do so. Do so. Because this is not the streets, y'all. The streets are different. The streets is where they say no snitching, snitches get stitches, but this is not the streets. If you're working in corporate America, in any sort of office environment, in any place where you're getting a W-2, this ain't the streets, okay? So I'm giving you the permission to talk about it to your HR, to your manager. Like, please, y'all, don't go to work with this mentality, the street mentality of no snitching, because if you don't snitch, then you're not going to have a better workplace experience. You're going to hate it. It's going to suck. It's going to be toxic. And sometimes I get it. I've heard it before. HR doesn't do anything. They hear about the drama or they hear about the manager, but they don't do anything. That's not always true. Now, yes, some HR teams suck because I've seen it. I've seen it before where some HR people really prefer to just have the company's back over the employees. I'm the type of HR person that I like to see both sides. Right? So when I need to have the company's back, I'll have the company's back. But when I need to have the employees back, I'm going to have the employees back. And when things like this come up to my attention, like, hey, there's some sort of workplace drama, I like to make sure that I'm involved in it. And I like to show some sort of empathy. I like to make sure that this person knows that we're addressing it. We're going to investigate it. It's going to get figured out. We've got your back and we're going to find a solution to this one way or another. And feelings might get hurt, but that's what you got to do sometimes. You have to sometimes pull out the cancer in order for the rest to be functioning and to be better and to be healthier. So that's just what it takes sometimes in the workplace. And, I've heard so many times of people saying like they've experienced bullying, they've experienced racism, they've experienced misogyny, they've experienced like so many negative things in the work environment that are unacceptable and that are in the workplace handbook that, you should not be. There are certain policies that are in the handbook that addresses certain code of conduct and things like that, but people still do it. Like, people will not always think about those things, but it's up to the HR person to address that and to fix it. If your HR team does not handle certain things correctly, listen, then you might have to get yourself a lawyer. Point blank, period. And trust me, companies hate getting sued. Companies hate lawyers that are not on their side. They hate that because they know that means that there's going to be money that's going to be spent, and most likely money that's going to be dished out to the person that is suing them. And companies do not like that. All right. Now, you also want to set clear expectations moving forward. So once let's assume you've handled the conflict, you've resolved the conflict, just don't assume that things will magically be smooth sailing again from here on out, Because you think about it like when you have a disagreement with your partner, right? You might have like a day or two where there's still a little bit of that tension that's lingering around in the house, but then after a while you're like, okay, we're over it, we've moved past it. It's kind of the same way at work. Like, you're not gonna automatically, okay, we're gonna hug it out, whatever, or agree to disagree, or however you handle it, and things are gonna go back to normal. It's gonna take a little minute, so hang on in there, okay? Now, set clear expectations moving forward. What can both parties do differently to avoid similar conflicts in the future? So, for example, this could mean setting up regular check-ins, adjusting workloads, improving communication methods, depending, of course, if this is manager to direct report, or if you're colleagues, depending on the situation. So there are different ways on how you can make sure to avoid the conflict in the future. If it arises again, especially with the same person, and after you've addressed it, then there's probably a pattern, there's a bad habit there, and you might have to get a superior involved. All right, fam. Those are some effective strategies for managing workplace conflict. Remember, conflict doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's all about how you handle it, approach it with empathy, stay professional, and focus on finding solutions that work for everyone involved. If you've got any workplace conflict stories or tips, drop them in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more HR and career advice. See y'all next time.